Hi everyone, glad to see you back on the channel. Today we're diving into a major development shaping the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East, and an important moment in U.S. foreign policy that has implications far beyond Washington or Baghdad. We're talking about the recent phone call between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, a conversation that reflects growing tensions with Iran, lingering challenges from the fight against ISIS, and the strategic balancing act that Iraq finds itself in between two powerful neighbors. The United States Department of State issued a readout of the call, explaining that Secretary Rubio reached out to Prime Minister al-Sudani to discuss a range of urgent issues facing Iraq and the wider region. At the heart of this conversation were concerns over Iraq's political direction, security cooperation, and the continued threat posed by extremist groups like ISIS, also known as Daesh. One of the first topics Rubio addressed during the call was Iraq's recent initiative to transfer ISIS suspects and detainees from northeastern Syria into secure detention facilities inside Iraq itself. Rubio commended the government of Iraq's initiative and leadership in expediting the transfer and detention of ISIS terrorists, according to the State Department statement. This move is part of broader efforts to ensure that captured fighters are held securely and can face justice, as instability in northeastern Syria has complicated the detention picture. This discussion was also tied to broader diplomatic efforts. Rubio and al-Sudani agreed on the importance of urging other nations whose citizens are detained in these facilities to repatriate their own nationals so they can be prosecuted at home. This is a key component of international counter-terrorism cooperation, as leaving foreign fighters in limbo runs the risk of future security threats. Beyond ISIS, the call touched on Iraq's internal political situation. Iraq is on the cusp of forming a new government, and in recent weeks there have been moves to bring back Nouri al-Maliki as prime minister, a deeply controversial figure whose previous tenure was marked by sectarian tensions and whose relationship with the United States deteriorated over time. Secretary Rubio emphasized that a government heavily controlled by Iranian influence would not be in Iraq's best interest, stressing that such influence could undermine the country's ability to act independently and maintain stability. Rubio's comments reflect long-standing U.S. concerns about Tehran's role in Iraq. Iran has cultivated deep ties with several Shia political and militia groups within Iraq over decades, and these relationships often come with arms, funding, and political backing. From the U.S. perspective, excessive Iranian influence threatens Iraqi sovereignty and could pull Baghdad into regional conflicts that are not of its making. In parallel, the United States has been clear that it wants to see Iraq play a constructive role in regional stability. Rubio's message to al-Sudani reiterated that Iraq has the potential to be a force for prosperity, security, and peace in the Middle East if it maintains independence from external domination and pursues policies that benefit its people. This is a framing the U.S. has used in recent years to encourage Baghdad to push back against competing influences. Another significant dimension of the call was energy and economic cooperation. Rubio and al-Sudani discussed efforts to reopen the Iraq-Turkey oil pipeline, a critical infrastructure project that could help Iraq achieve greater energy independence and boost its economy. Reopening this pipeline would allow Iraq to export more crude through Turkey, diversifying its export routes and reducing reliance on a single market. This was described as a mutually beneficial step that would attract more foreign investment, including from American businesses, and help stabilize Iraq's economic future. Connecting economic cooperation with security strategy is a classic move in U.S. foreign policy. When a country's economy is diversified and growing, it becomes less vulnerable to coercion by outside powers. In this context, the pipeline discussion was not just about commerce. It was also about reducing Iraq's vulnerability to Iranian leverage and enabling Baghdad to make decisions based on national interest rather than external pressure. The call also included discussions about bilateral cooperation on broader regional challenges. Rubio reaffirmed the United States' commitment to working closely with Iraqi leaders to ensure that Syria does not become a safe haven for terrorism. Given the instability in parts of Syria and the shifting landscape following the withdrawal of certain forces, the U.S. has been keen to prevent ungoverned spaces that could allow extremist groups to regroup or expand. This reflects ongoing concerns about cross-border security dynamics that directly affect Iraq. Throughout the conversation, Rubio underscored the importance of the U.S. Iraq strategic partnership, an agreement framework that has evolved since the 2003 invasion and the subsequent fight against ISIS. While the physical footprint of U.S. troops in Iraq has diminished over time, the diplomatic and security relationship remains a cornerstone of Washington's Middle East policy. Rubio's outreach to al-Sudani was, in part, an affirmation of that strategic partnership. Yet this relationship exists amid a complicated backdrop. Iran continues to exert influence in Iraq through political allies and militia networks, some of which have clashed with U.S. forces in the past. The balance that Iraq must strike between partnering with the United States for security and managing internal factions with ties to Tehran is delicate and fraught with tension. This is a central challenge facing Prime Minister al-Sudani and the broader Iraqi leadership. It's also important to understand that the call did not happen in a vacuum. Around the same time, the United States has been repositioning military assets in the Middle East in response to escalating tensions with Iran. While the Secretary of State focuses on diplomacy, national security decisions about force posture, sanctions, and intelligence operations are unfolding on parallel tracks. This dual approach, diplomacy backed by the credible threat of force, is typical of how Washington navigates high-stakes foreign policy challenges. Iran's reaction to increased U.S. pressure has been defiant, with Iranian officials vowing retaliation against perceived aggression. These threats have helped fuel concerns throughout the region about the potential for escalation, and neighboring countries are watching closely. The backdrop includes mass protests within Iran and growing domestic instability, which in turn affects Tehran's external behavior and regional alliances. All of this plays into the strategic calculus that countries like Iraq must now make. From Iraq's perspective, these pressures compound an already fragile domestic political situation. The potential return of a figure like Nouri al-Maliki to the premiership is controversial. Al-Maliki's earlier tenure as prime minister was marked by accusations of sectarian favoring and policies that many analysts believe contributed to the rise of ISIS. His re-emergence raises concerns among some Iraqis about repeating past mistakes and tilting the country towards sectarian conflict. Prime Minister al-Sudani himself has a complex political profile. His government has increased the influence of the Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF, a network of militias that played a pivotal role in the fight against ISIS but have ties to Iran and regional militia networks. While the PMF's involvement helped degrade ISIS, their involvement in politics and security creates pressure points in Iraq's governance and sovereignty. When Rubio speaks to al-Sudani about the dangers of a government controlled by Iran, he is pointing to these underlying dynamics that could pull Iraq away from its stated goals of stability and independence. It's a warning that resonates beyond rhetoric because the U.S. believes that Iranian influence could tie Iraq to broader regional conflicts, including tensions with Israel and Gulf states, and drag Baghdad into disputes that do not necessarily serve Iraqi interests. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel.